Well, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry says the negative impact of Eskom's Stage 6 load shedding could see South African companies cutting staff due to continued rolling blackouts. The power utility announced this week that 11 of their generators broke down, resulting in indefinite Stage 6 load shedding. Eskom has been mired in a financial crisis for years and is dependent on government bailouts. Now, consumers should brace themselves for tougher times ahead, as after Nersa granted the power utility an electricity tariff hike of 18.65%. Taking this conversation forward, we are now joined via Zoom by energy analyst Mr. Hlathi Madela to weigh in on ongoing load shedding and Eskom's tariff increase. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Mr. Madela. You know, just listening to that previous clip, South Africans are desperate for answers. They're desperate to understand what exactly Eskom is doing. But before we discuss solutions, let's just talk about the tariff increase. Eskom wanted 32% increase. While many have labeled this as, of course, outrageous, Eskom says it's welcome the increase. But given what Eskom had originally asked for, how will this 18.65% tariff determination meet the utilities' demands then?
Good afternoon to you and your listeners. I am not sure how, because I don't actually work for Eskom. What I can say, though, is that Eskom is entitled to this increase, because if you know the inner workings of Eskom and what is going on there with the independent power producers, there's even a claim that Eskom was supposed to pass through the cost of independent power producers to the consumers. So we know that even when Eskom asks for an increase, they go there with a cautious approach. They should actually have asked for more, if you ask me. If you check everything, the inner workings, all the players, all the contracts and everything that's going on. So you have to understand that Eskom needed a reasonable increase in order for them to be able to have money for maintenance and all of these other things. So I don't know where this outrage has come from. It's people who don't want to understand how a utility like Eskom is supposed to work.
Help us understand that then, because as consumers, it's becoming increasingly difficult to understand. Can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes,
so,
I can hear you.
So, Mr. Madela, help us understand why you think that, those that are saying this tariff increase is outrageous. We do understand, of course, that the utility suffers from breakages, year in, year out, which results in what we are currently experiencing now, which is stage 6 load shedding. Some have argued, in fact, that it's probably not even stage 6, it's probably stage 8 at this point, because it's becoming ridiculous in terms of the day-to-day living. But help us understand why you think that Eskom then, deserved a more increase than 18.65%, which is probably what they wanted, 32%.
Yeah, let me say this. First of all, Eskom is defined as a non-profit, as a non-profit company. It's not there to make enormous profits. So they need the money to fund their operations and maintenance. And how do they get the money if they're not going to ask for more increase? Because they've got a lot of input costs. Everything that they buy has gone up. Coal has gone up. The contractors are charging more. Diesel has gone up. They're running a fleet of cars. Every little thing that they put there as input, it has increased. Let's just take the diesel cost, for instance, not even for burning diesel like they do burn diesel, but for them to run their vehicle fields. The diesel in 2018 now was 14 Rand a litre. It is now 26 Rand. So it's quite unreasonable for people to expect Eskom not to ask for an increase. And as I keep saying to you, that they have to contend with the cost escalation of the independent power producers that they sign 20-year contracts on. Now, as everything increased, they still have to pay the same amount of money to the independent power producers. So they have to ask themselves and look, how can they increase their revenues in order to be able to service all these contracts, including the coal contract? Even the coal suppliers themselves, they increase their coal. So Eskom cannot fold their arms and say, okay, the coal contractors are increasing their coal. Everybody's increasing their input cost to us. We must just fold our arms and say we cannot increase. There is a claim in the industry, those who are close to the industry, that it's Eskom's problem that they are not passing through the cost of the independent power producers to the consumers. So they are basically saying that Eskom is charging us less.
So talk then about, just some of the responsibilities from a managerial role, and I'm talking specifically here about the turnaround strategy that Eskom has had in its sights for a number of years now. Talk to us then about, just the foreseeable increases that you speak of, that they probably had line of sight of. What then can we say about the way in which the company has really failed to find tangible solutions and a credible plan to ensure that, it has these plans in place and it actually implements some of these plans? Like I said, we know that they are operating an unreliable system because of the breakages.
Well, I think to cut a long story short, Eskom's survival plan rests on the people who are going to go there, brave people who are going to confront the elephant in the room in terms of the current crisis, the medium-term plan, as well as the long-term plan. Everybody now is concentrating on the crisis that we have. There's no planning in terms of how we're going to get out of this hole. There's no medium-term plan. There's no long-term plan. So it is up to the individuals to understand that this country is not going to close down. Eskom is not going to close down. We will have a country in 20 years' time, in 100 years' time. And this country needs to be supplied with electricity. So everybody is now focused on this crisis. So we need a strong team that arrests this crisis and start allowing other new players, other new technologies like nuclear, like coal. We are having this problem because, first of all, they abandoned the coal fleet and they were told to go the renewable energy route. These things have not worked entirely as they had anticipated. Now it's time for us to attract other players who are wanting to supply solutions for nuclear and want to supply solutions for gas and want to supply solutions for coal. But if those are suppressed, as you can see in the presidential investment plan of 1.9 trillion rand, there's very little mention of gas, and there's no mention of coal, and there's no mention of nuclear at all. Here in South Africa, we've got companies that are wanting to make an offer to Eskom to assist with the electricity planning, like HTMR, which is in Pretoria. We've got our own pebble bed modular reactor. Everybody's running around with nuclear overseas. We've got people overseas running with coal. We are the only country who are now focusing on two things. We are focusing on the Eskom crisis, and we are not talking about medium-term and long-term plan. We completely shut down those conversations. The crisis that is there requires brave people who are going to confront the politicians and reverse all those decisions that were taken. It's a financial problem. Eskom hasn't got sufficient funds to arrest all the problems that are resulting in load shedding. They have to get money from that increase of Nersa, but at the same time, they have to renegotiate those contracts. So you need the people who are going to go there and do no favors to nobody, call all these contractors, negotiate with them, undo some of the contracts that were irregular.
Then what is a government's role? I mean, I hear you talking about, Eskom needing a strong and bold leadership team, particularly as we know it's always confronted by what is called political interference. What then becomes of government's role? Because at this stage, there have been calls that President Cyril Ramaphosa calls an urgent meeting to address this crisis, this power crisis that we are currently finding ourselves in. And as you and I know, a sustainable energy sector speaks to the health of the country's economy. So what then becomes President Cyril Ramaphosa's role in as far as this is concerned, especially if we are all saying and agreeing to the fact that we are sitting with a power crisis?
Well, we are calling for a 2-week national dialogue to take South Africans into confidence and properly diagnose what's going on at Eskom, so that whoever will be given these tasks, they know exactly what to do. One of those major tasks is to now free the president, remove the president from this, because first of all, he doesn't even have the necessary skills of this. We need to remove the government. We need to take Eskom into a special purpose vehicle, like other people have said. It was the government and their friends and their investment friends and their contractors' friends that brought us here. It cannot be the same government again that takes us out, that takes us out here. We need to remove the government. If this government is serious, it will excuse itself and let the practitioners and the people who know what they are doing come up with a solution. But before we come up with a solution, we need to be on national TV. Take full 2 weeks to properly diagnose the problem so that everybody knows what needs to be done. You'll be amazed if we were to have that 2-week national dialogue. We'll be able to tell South Africa the kind of contract that needs to be reviewed. We will tell you where the government is not supposed to be participating at all, because the government itself, the reason why it's unable to make these decisions is because it's sympathetic to their friends that brought us into this situation. The coal suppliers, the contractors that supply the services. Each and every one of these guys, they are linked into these companies. Do you think they are going to undo these contracts willingly? They're not. They're being threatened that your company is going to go bust. Me and you, we don't have those contracts. So we need to excuse the government from this and have completely independent people looking into this. Otherwise, the lights are going to go off. We're going to have a week-long blackout.
As we wrap this conversation, and very, very quickly, Mr. Madela, in your view, do you think that this problem is going to escalate worse than we are currently seeing now?
It's going to escalate worse if we continue pinning our hopes on the government. I understand that the government is the shareholder, but the government is unable to do the obvious things. Eskom can be safe. Actually, Eskom load shedding can be done away with, but it requires tough decisions. And we sympathize with the government because there's a reason why they don't want to take those decisions. Some of them is a negative perception into the investment, investment preparedness of the country. But we now need to first save ourselves. Put yourself in the shoes of Germany. Germany has embarrassed itself in front of the entire world when they realized that the lights were going to go off. They went looking for coal everywhere. They destroyed the wind farm and sink a shaft, and they are mining coal because to them it didn't matter what how the world looks at them. What mattered was the lights were going to go off, and they were able to make those decisions. If the government is unable to make those decisions, it must bring independent people to make the same decisions that the Germans have made.
Mr. Madela, thank you so much for your time. Let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for that. Of course, that was energy analyst Mr. Hlathi Madela weighing in, of course, on the latest Eskom tariff increase of 18.65%, saying that, in fact, it's not outrageous. It's a good thing that Eskom has been given this tariff increase. Well, we'll have more news for you straight after this. Stay with us.